Hello, my name is Judy Kuntz, and I am a volunteer producer for Traverse Area Community Media Public Access TV station. It's also on channel 189 on Charter, and it's also has internet access. Today, I'm interviewing Dana Ferguson for the second time. He is one of two candidates on the ballot in the August 4th primary election in the Democratic runoff for the Michigan 1st District U.S. House seat. The winner of the primary will face the incumbent District 1 U.S. representative in the November general election. I'd like to let you know that there was an additional interview done recently, and that and the interview done today will both be available on Dana Ferguson's website, which will have it at the bottom of the screen for you to view. And they will also be available through Traverse Area Community Media, TACM.TV. And the easiest thing to do is to go to the search bar and just put in the word Ferguson. And those two interviews, when both are ready, they will just come up and you'll just choose the one that you'd like to watch. If you can, I'd encourage you to watch the first one because it was a more broadly based set of questions to give an overview of Mr. Ferguson's positions and et cetera related to his vying for this House seat. Okay, now I'd like to introduce Dana Ferguson. Dana, welcome to Traverse Area Community Media's candidate interview series.
Thank you, Judy. It's good to be with you again.
Okay. Well, hi there, Dana.
Hi, Judy.
In front of my screen. I apologize for that. So.
That's all right.
I apologize, people. Of course, Michigan's 1st District includes much more than just the Traverse area. In fact, it's 25,000 square miles large. That's an awful bite of Michigan to take off for one for House seat. So there's a challenge that we know that you'll be facing right there. Okay. Just to let the audience know, we met recently through a debate that you had with your primary opponent over Zoom. And like the last meeting that we did together, I wish we were in person, but right now we're not able to do that. So, but I know that you have a truly Michigan life story. Can you tell us briefly about your background, your education, your work experience, and any other information that you'd like to share relevant to your desire to serve the 1st District in the U.S. Congress?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for that. Yeah, I'll try to keep it brief. So if anyone has already seen the first interview, they don't get a regurgitation. But yeah, I'm a 3rd generation Yooper. My family is from the area. My dad is from Marquette. My mom is from Negaunee. Working class background on both sides. I graduated high school and had a family at a young age and had to figure out what my path was. That's how I got into the construction field. My dad had a small business in Marquette, so I got in as a union laborer, started school at Northern Michigan University. Afterwards, I got my bachelor's in economics. I continued working as a union laborer for the most part because it was difficult to find work in my field that paid anything, and not wanting to leave. I had a young family. It was more important to me to stay in the area. So I continued working in construction up until around 2009. When the recession hit, my dad's company went out of business, and so I was out of work. That's when I thought about what to do next. I decided that I was going to go back to school. I started working on my master's in public administration. I continued in construction. I eventually got into carpentry and then finally joined the Carpenters Union. That's the bulk of my work history. It doesn't really tell you why I got involved in politics. My early history, it's not something I'd ever thought of. This is not something that I aspired to at a young age, like some people. This is something that I really stumbled upon. I always felt passionate about the issues, but besides being more of an activist voice for these issues, getting out and being front and center, facing the criticism, looking to shape policy was not something that I had ever thought of. It wasn't until after I started working on my actually my bachelor's in economics, and then started getting into my master's, that the thought even came to my head. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought I had a unique story coming from the working class background. I know the struggles that so many of the people face, not just here in the district, but all across the country. So I thought I could be a voice for just the average person out there. That's my story, that's my life. So that's what really got me going. And then when I think about my kids and their future, it gives me that motivation to be a voice for positive change.
Well, thank you very much, Dana, for that explanation of your background. And I have some similarity with that, blue middle class background. My dad was a truck driver, and we were a union family. And actually, when I would hear my dad talk about things related to work, I at one time said I was going to be a union organizer. So I didn't do that, but I also didn't train to be a public access TV producer either. So dreams can come true. So with a lot of work and with help, okay? And so the important thing here today is to learn a little bit more about you. And I got some help preparing for this interview compared to the first one. And I realized, wait a minute, I want some perspectives from other individuals that would be represented by you in the district. So our format is a little bit different. So instead of focusing on those three topics from the last, economics, social safety net, and the climate and the environment, I have some other types of questions today that I either got a specific question from people that I talked with, or I got enough information from them that I was able, and they gave me permission to formulate a question to ask you today. And I want to say that they do come primarily from Leelanau County and Washtenaw County. If I do this again, I will get farther afield in the other parts of the district. And they do come, I do feel that they represent a range of backgrounds in terms of what they did in their life, what their focuses are right now, and other metrics. And I asked them, what would it be good to know about a candidate to help you evaluate them as a candidate for U.S. representative from the 1st District? So that was the question that I asked. So, like I said, some responders just gave me a question right away. So, and in terms of the timing of today, it's so difficult to ask you to, talk for 2 minutes, okay, or something like that. We always go overboard, but I know it's difficult to do that and to limit yourself. So feel free to answer the questions, but I would like you to think about the fact that the more direct and to the point the answers are, the more questions we'll be able to get to. Okay, and then there will always be more questions later. So, okay, so shall we begin?
All right, let's go. Okay.
So I have a very interesting question to start with, and then I'm going to pull them out of my thing willy-nilly, randomly, but I am going to take the first one. So, okay. And it's a 2-part question. Imagine, like the Beatles say, imagine that the Equal Rights Amendment is just coming up for a vote in the U.S. House when you are the representative from Michigan's 1st District. The first part of the question is, how would you vote? We'd like to hear that, okay? And then I will ask you a second question about the same issue, kind of, okay? Ready? Yeah. So how would you vote?
I would vote for it.
Okay.
Easy enough.
Easy enough. Okay. All right. So here's the tough part. How will you advocate given that you have now voted for it and it has passed and, et cetera, and gone into action in the United States, how will you advocate for equality for all citizens in District 1 and throughout the state and the country if you serve in the U.S. House of Representatives for District 1?
Yeah, it's really unfortunate that we even have to be talking about this right now. It would be great to say that we moved past this a long time ago, that we all feel that all of our rights are equal, and unfortunately, that's not where we're at. So I'm a firm believer that we are all created equal under this government, and until we are treated that way, then there has to be a fight going on. So I guess I would stand unwaveringly there for everyone out there, regardless of who they are, what their sexual orientation was, what race they were, what religion, any of those. I think that we need to be looking at this and going forward into the future as equals. Until we are, there's work to do. So I would be working to make sure that everyone feels that they have a voice.
Thank you for that response. Thank you so much. Okay, the next question is kind of about the kinds of medical models that we have working for us in this country. And in our last interview, we talked about challenges to healthcare in many areas of District 1. Some of those challenges are not enough physicians in rural areas, long distances to get to either a doctor or to a care facility, the length of time it takes emergency squads to get to someone if they need emergency help through a car accident or an accident of another type, and fewer availability or less availability of actual health professionals across the whole health field. The coronavirus pandemic, that's the first part of it. The coronavirus pandemic has highlighted the danger of pre-existing conditions such as heart disease, obesity, nutritional deficiencies, and the inequality that exists in certain groups in the population. And that applies to District 1 as well. Do you feel District 1 could do a better job of providing information, education, and access to services that could improve health in District 1, such as addressing things like obesity, immunity issues, health stresses like smoking, again, nutrition? And what do you think about applying the difference between a preventive health model versus the medical illness model as we move forward and deal with health issues in our country?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like not just the first district, but as a country, we should be getting more of that out. Yeah, we do have a reactionary treatment style approach right now, and that's largely because of the reason people wait to seek medical treatment. The ability to pay is something that prevents so many people from getting that treatment. I've been there. You don't go to the doctor until you really have to, because you have to pay your car payment or insurance or groceries. And that's an unfortunate position for an individual or a family to be in. But it's in my eyes, it's kind of a black mark on us as a country. So that's something that I would really like to address. I think once we get to that point, we can absolutely be focusing more on preventative care, preventative medicine. That way, that's going to contribute to lowering of healthcare costs in the long run. So, but until we take care of what's wrong with the system right now, we are going to be reactionary. We're going to be behind the curve on this. So the sooner we can take care of that major hurdle, obstacle that people can't go to the doctor or choose not to go to the doctor. I just had something on Facebook about this, where it's, there's over 27 million people uninsured or underinsured, and a large chunk of the population that is uninsured. So when you have that many people that can't or don't go to the doctor for whatever reason it is, and it's not most of the time it's not because they don't feel like something's wrong. It's another factor. It's financial or otherwise. Until we can address that, we're going to have a hard time really focusing on preventative care. So I would like to address that one area first.
Okay, the next question is about water safety and conservation. We in District 1 are blessed by and proud of the Great Lakes. In fact, four of the 5 Great Lakes touch Michigan. There are challenges to the safety of these lakes, as well as to the groundwater throughout our area. I'm going to ask you, what is your view of 2 issues? The first one is water, a commodity or a right freely and fairly available to all citizens of Michigan and beyond?
Yeah, I definitely have to say it is a right. It's I don't like to look at the Great Lakes, something that so many people that call this place their home look at it as that's a big reason that they live here. We have the tribes that consider it sacred. This is so important to our culture, to who we are, to our businesses, to the people that live here, to tourism. So it's absolutely a right, and that's why I think we need to preserve it and protect it for us, for our children, and for future generations.
Okay, thank you. The second question or comment is, I'll turn it into a question. There are dangerous challenges to our lakes from such projects as oil pipelines and polluting industries. What are your views on regulating those industries, and who should have the biggest voice in feeding into the way that we allow corporations to actually, work, have their corporations on the Great Lakes, on our shores, and that's what we'd like to know.
Sure. Yeah. Corporations definitely have too much power and too much sway over what happens in or around not just the Great Lakes, but around the country. And I think the people have to have the loudest voice. So when it comes to fossil fuels or oil or anything like that, I'm no fan. I think we need to be moving away from them as quickly as possible, especially as an energy source. It's not sustainable. There are other alternatives that fit more with my ethos and my belief that we can have a green future with green energy and green jobs. I don't think that fossil fuels have a major role in our future energy. So I think giving them too much control, especially when it comes to the possibility of it damaging our home, I think is extremely dangerous, and I think we should do everything we can to prevent that from happening. So I think when it comes to regulation, there needs to be very strict government regulations. We can't trust these foreign corporations in many cases to oversee themselves. That's, in my opinion, not just silly, but it's reckless. So I think that we need very strong government regulations that are designed to protect our natural resources, our people, and future generations.
Thank you very much, Dana, for answering that very important question for Michigan and other states and the country. Moving on. Picked another one. Okay. This one falls under the category of dying with dignity. We have both a rural and an aging population. In rural areas, hospitals and other medical facilities, such as long-term care and hospice and other types of support facilities or support for families, can be sparse and expensive. This can negatively impact care at the end of life. An alternative that is available, and in some states has already been put in by law, is dying with dignity or medically assisted death. What would be your view of instituting such a program in Michigan, in our area, and in Michigan?
It's not where I thought that question was going. So, okay, I guess I need a little clarification. Is this just in cases of say they have a terminal diagnosis, or is this having to do anything with financial or quality of health care?
No. Well, maybe I qualified that and put that in there, but in many cases, they're very much intertwined, okay? But no, the issue is related primarily to individuals with terminal illnesses or, very long-term illnesses. And right now, in fact, in many states, that is currently legal as long as the individual who is assisting, and that's the important part of this, that they are assisting the individual, they are present, but they are not allowed to actually administer a particular, medication or anything like that. Nor is it for individuals who have perhaps had an injury and therefore are paralyzed for life. So it does not apply to that kind of situation. So it does need to be deemed a medically terminal illness.
Yeah.
That's the kind of program that is being positioned. Hospice is such an important part. We've accepted hospice. Hospice has become a very primary way that families get assistance and patients get assistance at end of life. But sometimes that becomes a very long, prolonged situation. And so that would be the kind of situation where medically assisted dying would come in.
Yeah, that's a really, it's a really difficult question, and I can give you my personal stance on it. I hate to think of anyone even being in that position, but I can't imagine it, and I don't feel like it would be my place to tell them what they could or couldn't do at that point in their life. I can't be the judge of the pain that they feel or how they would like to go. So I feel like I would be inclined to support that just as it is, as it's explained right now. I don't say that lightly because I don't want anyone to have to make that decision, but I can see, my previous father-in-law, I was there when he was dying of cancer. He was just 43, just not much older than me. And that's an extremely, extremely difficult thing to watch. I know it was very difficult for him. I mean, he went from this lively, athletic, strong person and just a slow deterioration. And I know that was extremely hard for him. That I know he lost a lot of hope at the end. So I could never judge someone for wanting to make that decision, and maybe not wanting to make that, but for making that decision.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that was a very difficult question, but it came from an individual who has worked in hospice and has been a medical professional for many, many, many years. And I am actually a hospice volunteer as well, and have had family experiences where this, has been an issue. So thank you very much for sharing your heart about that. And it's, it's something that we will probably be seeing in Michigan in the near future as a very important discussion point. Okay. Whittling down the list here. Okay. The next question is about unequal distribution of wealth.
All right.
Okay. We have seen an increase in the unevenness of the distribution of wealth in our country and our region. This unevenness has economic, social, and educational factors as some of its root causes. But these factors are also in turn created by the unevenness of wealth. It is basically a cyclic, circular, and especially a multi-generational issue. Can you speak to this situation as it exists or impacts Michigan's first district? How can we break this cycle? And what steps can be taken to prioritize a healthy economy for all more broadly, especially in the first district?
Okay. Yeah, I can definitely speak to this. This is the hard part about this one is keeping it short. So coming from an economic background, this is the area that I feel most comfortable talking about. This is the area where I've done the most study. And I know there's a lot of people out there that want to call anyone that says, listen, we need to promote a more equitable society as anti-capitalist. But I can say that 100% true. That is absolutely not true at all. Capitalism it's a market economy. You can still have a market economy with rules. We have rules in place right now, and all it would be tweaking these rules that create a fair playing field for everyone. Right now, when there's an accumulation of wealth, people do gain a greater advantage. You can compare it to anything. We can look at a sports team that their athletes are able to get bigger and stronger, and then competing with a flag football team or a middle school football team, they're not going to be able to compete. And you can say, well, they're on the same field, but they're really not. So that's on the big scale. I think we need to be looking at the individual first. Right now, as a country, we pride ourselves on being the greatest country out there, and yet we allow so many people to struggle. You know, the people have jobs out there right now. They have multiple jobs. It's not really how it should be. If you're working 40 hours a week, which is time away from your family, puts a lot of stress on the home environment, on finances. And if you can't pay for your bills, that is a damaging blow to your ego just as a person. And I think that we should be addressing that right now as a country and redefine what greatness is. It's not just the size of the stock market or GDP or even unemployment rate. It's how we're treating everyone. So anyone that's out there working really should have that dignity to say that they're working and they're able to take care of themselves and their family and pay their bills. So when we have an economy that doesn't promote that, I think that reflects more poorly on us as a country and how we haven't improved over the last century, really. So yeah, I think in the first district, a rural district, but we're also entering a global economy. We have an opportunity to lead in this area. And I know it sounds funny to think like rural communities leading, but we're all connected globally. But the economic landscape going into the future is going to look different than it does today or 10 years ago or 50 years ago. It's just different. So let's not look at the past to use that as a model for the future. Let's open up our minds and say, what can we create? And I think we can create an economy that is strong, that is sustainable, and that is stable if we have the right rules in place. We don't need government intervention and everything, but we do need a referee to make sure people are following the rules that are out there. So yeah, I think small businesses are going to be thriving in the future. I think local farmers are going to be thriving. It's no more of these large corporations or corporate agriculture. We're going to be shifting towards these things because they are going to be able to compete. At least that's what I would be fighting for. The ability for these entrepreneurs and business owners to compete and in rural communities on a global scale. And if we set the rules right, we can achieve that.
Very thoughtful. I know that you have done a lot of thinking and talking to people about raising people middle class.
There's so much more I could say, so I got to cut it short.
Okay, no, you don't have to. We actually only have one more official question that I developed from this poll that I did of individuals, and then some final comments, but and information about how the audience can view these programs. So the last topic is mental health. I'm a psychologist, but not a clinical psychologist, but I still know the value of mental health. Many seniors in our district lack the availability, lack the availability of senior centers. And by that, I mean actually established physical locations where seniors can go. But also, they lack programs that can serve them in their homes, which is also another way that services can be provided with seniors. That can be because of physical impairments or loss of driving ability. And for Michigan in particular, you know how the weather changes all the time?
Yeah.
Your plan may be to get to that lunch, but weather challenges during some of the season, all of these factors can cause isolation, loneliness, and can impact mental health. And a little subscript to that is that we're living through that as a whole population right now. And certainly, I guess we can say in some ways, maybe that helps give us a sense of what that would feel like for individuals maybe older than us or who have those difficulties getting to services that do exist. So the actual question is, what would you do or propose to address this issue in District 1? What kinds of provider networks would you support or try to fund through action, through laws, etc., to create a community approach to healthy, happy aging? And I'll give a couple examples just to get you started.
Okay.
In-person programs, which we probably have to wait until after the virus is under control. Tele-mental health programs, like we're getting used to telemed. I've had my first telemed appointment this year. Those are two good examples of ways that programs could be done, but I'd like you to speak to those or to other potential ways. And secondly, would you support funding for expanding those kinds of programs, especially in rural areas?
Okay. Yeah. I would definitely support funding for those types of programs. I think this is a unique opportunity because I think this goes somewhat back to what I was saying about how we define greatness and how we value each of our citizens. And I look at the life cycle of people, and they spend their life taking care of their families, working, contributing to society, contributing to the economy. And then when it comes to retire and things slow down and change, that's a time that they should be celebrating. And unfortunately, we see so many people where it's a struggle, where it's lonely, where it's not what they imagined. And that is, again, I think it reflects on our priorities. I don't think we've given seniors enough respect. I don't think we've shown them enough respect. So yeah, I think we need to do more to make sure that they have that comfortable, enjoyable life after they've retired and they've aged. And it's a time of life it's not easy by any means, because their kids or their grandkids are off doing their own things. So getting a visit is a surprise, and it would be nice if it was more like a regular thing. But they should have that ability where they're not feeling so alone. They should be able to get any treatment that they want. And I mean, mental health, that's a really important issue for me, for everyone, whether it's like the youth or people like me, or the elderly or vets. It's important all the way around. So it would be great to see more investment in mental health services all around. But if you're just talking about the stability of mental health by how this group is valued, I think we definitely need to do more. And that's something that I would love to dig into and explore. I think we need to be bringing them to the table and letting them have a voice. Like, what are they looking for? What can we be doing to be improving their time? So I would be open to all ideas, but using technology is one that I think that we should be using more, and I think will be used more in the future.
Well, thank you for that I'm just reflecting because I'm a senior. I have had to have a little help learning how to use Zoom and other things and devices. And yet I'm surprised at how many others are currently. And so you're right. I think that, having communities, creating communities of seniors so that people don't feel alone is a very important thing. In fact, just talking with people in the various things I'm doing right now, everybody is surprised at how much they feel connected. Yes, we'd like to have physical connection, but that they feel connected, and even their networks are growing because they're actually putting in a little bit of effort to share, and people sharing their connections with other people. So I see it as something feasible. So I'm glad that you agree with that.
Well, and another thing, my mother-in-law and my wife's grandma, they both live at Snowberry in Marquette, and it's an amazing place. They absolutely love it. It's like this little community and full of friends. And I'm trying to convince my mother-in-law to try out some technology. She's not having it, but it's an area where she feels safe, and she absolutely loves it there. And I know a lot of the residents there feel the same way. So I think there's so many things that we could be doing. We just have to start doing them.
Well, and the fact that they have the ability to and the opportunity, because it's in the area, to be able to live in congregate housing, that's wonderful. But many do not, in terms of finances and things like that. And so again, it's something to look at as what is fair, and what kinds of things really are so important, like you said, to the character of our region. Just like you needing to have the internet, I didn't get to that question yet. In fact, I don't know where that question went, but I know that there's a question about the internet. So, okay. Where did that question go? I think I could do it from, keeps people from coming here to work, but not having programs keeps people from not coming here to work either, because there's not things that they can do. They want to be able to provide those services. So I'll get off my soapbox now. Okay. It's not my interview, but anyway. Okay, the last question left in the pile, which I can't find, but I kind of know, is it's kind of about the internet, okay? It relates to the fact that we've just finished a school season, and will be, hopefully, I hear about planning for starting the school season in September. And yet both of those things, the type of closing we had this year, which was not just a closing in June, but was a change in the way education was done across pretty much all age groups, from kindergarten, preschool, et cetera, all the way up to universities, changed because of the COVID virus. So we go back to school, or people go back to school in the fall, and they hopefully will be able to take up with those kinds of supports that they had. But the question becomes, in this district, do we have a fair playing field in regard to internet learning? And what can we do? We're asking you a lot of questions about what can you do? What can you do? How energetic are you about that issue? About creating evenness, even distribution for all children, all high schoolers, et cetera, across all areas, geographically, income level, et cetera, in terms of all school districts and other places where education happens.
Yeah. Well, that's a really big issue. So like broadband cell service, these are things that are so important to our future, because we are lagging behind in the infrastructure department. So, which I'm going to be talking about more here over the coming weeks. I'm going to release like an infrastructure plan, including how we're going to be paying for it. So I think not just our district, but other rural communities around the country, they are at a disadvantage because of their populations, because of who they are. And I think that is something that has to change. I think that there are far more benefits to investing in rural infrastructure, modernizing our infrastructure, especially at this point in our history, than there are negatives. And I believe that I could convince urban areas, urban districts, and other like metropolitan areas of those benefits to invest in rural areas. Because when we invest in rural areas, we're going to be stabilizing our home prices. We're going to be benefiting our educational system. We're going to be helping rural healthcare. We're going to be drawing in more talent, and we're going to be retaining other talent that might leave the area otherwise. So yeah, it's so important to so many areas, but especially education. So no, we're at a complete disadvantage. There are some areas that are fine. Like my son, when he went virtual learning, he was fine. We have internet, but there are so many that don't. And then there are more that can't afford it. So even if they could get it, they can't afford it. So there you go. You're falling behind because of your economic situation, which that's not something that should be okay with us as a country. So I think if we can invest in rural infrastructure, modernize our infrastructure, you're going to see rural areas come back, and you see them play a major role in the overall economy and society. And that's when you're going to see our school systems really improve. Because right now you have the inner city schools and you have rural schools, and they're both struggling, and there's a reason for that. Did that answer your question?
Yes.
I want to make sure that I answered. Okay.
No, I had a little pause there, but well, again, it wasn't my question, but you can probably tell what were some of the backgrounds of some of the people that I talked about. And if I had been able to talk to more people, I would have had even more questions. But we
send it my way.
Coming up on the appropriate length of time for an interview like this for our public to be able to watch and have the time to watch. So I think we'll bring this to an end for right now. And again, I want to thank you so much for having spent this time with us today and gone through the gauntlet of the questions. And we've covered a range of topics. And thank you again for your honesty and forthrightness. And the primary election is in August, okay? And that is to be determined as to whether or not you will go on to the general election in the fall. But if we want to have educated, informed electorate, we'd be happy to do another interview with you and have everybody have a peek over the pale into Dana Ferguson's approach to things and him as an individual. So Dana, would you like to make a final summary statement?
Sure.
Focusing on why do you think you're the best candidate? Now this is touchy. Nobody wants to answer that question. To serve as the U.S. representative in the U.S. Congress for Michigan's District 1. And what are your goals? What are your goals for what you would be focusing on in Washington? And of course, that will change probably every week until the election.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. And thank you, Travis Area Community Media, for doing this. And I'll come back anytime to answer any questions. So don't be afraid to invite me back. Yeah, well, here's why obviously I'm running, why I think people should vote for me. I feel like I have the best ability to connect and communicate with the people that I'm seeking to represent. It's really that simple in my eyes. I'm not out there telling people to vote for me because of who I know or how much money I've earned or anything like that. I feel like my vision of the future, the policies and issues that I talk about, I feel like they paint a very different picture of what is possible versus, say, Jack Bergman. And I think that's what people really have to look at. And I think if you get someone with passion, with intelligence, with know-how of the people they're seeking to represent, I think you can get I think that's a good recipe for positive change. And hopefully we see that all over the country, not just here in the first district, because then I think you're going to see this country get back on track, something that we can be, proud of, and instead of cringe at, like we have been at times over the last few years. So, that's really what I'm out there to do. My big issues are obviously they're central to the first district, but they're also really critical, I think, at the national and even international level. I think the economy is important. And when I talk about the economy, I'm talking about the individual pieces. I talked about a strong, sustainable, stable economy. I think that's really important. So how we define that, we really have to be sitting down and looking at it. And I feel like I have a definition that I hopefully can convince people of, and we can move in that direction. And another big one, climate change. This is one of those international levels that we can't be pushing off any longer. We have to be dealing with this right now. The younger generation wants us to be listening. And if we're not, then we're disrespecting them, and we're disrespecting future generations. And healthcare is extremely important. And this impacts the first district, at a huge level. But again, I think it impacts the entire country. I think it goes back to what do we view as important? How do we view each citizen and their role in society? And I think each person is important. So I think when we can address that, we can have a stronger society, a stronger economy, and a better future. If anyone does have any other questions, I'm always open to answer them. You can check out my website for any stances on issues. That's takeithomemi.com. That'll take you there. But you can email me, you can follow me on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and all that fun stuff.
Thank you, Dana. Thank you, Dana, for those closing comments. Again, we'll put the access to your website and let's see, and we'll put the information for viewing this program as well as the first interview that we did with you earlier in June on our website, and it'll be available to view electronically through whatever device you might have, your phone. I don't know, maybe they've invented new things, every day there's a new way to access. So thank you again. We wish you well and in your endeavors. It's anybody who is as dedicated as you are and deserves to be heard, and we're glad that we were able to give you a forum to be able to do that and to answer these questions from our residents, and many of whom were actually seniors. It just so happens we have a lot of seniors, and we went on Grand Traverse County. So thank you again, and we do hope we might be able to have a chance to see you again, if not before the primary, then perhaps next step. Okay, thank you.
Right.
Now, be well.
Thank you, Judy. You too.